And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I was thinking, I've done a lot of videos about the commanders that we used to see in the format we don't see anymore, the staples we used to see that we don't see anymore. I've done a lot of videos recently about all the commanders we've been getting, maybe too many, non-stop spoilers, all of that. I think the video I just did was that. Obviously, we've gotten an absolutely insane amount of commanders in the format in the last couple of years in particular, and I thought it would be interesting to go back and take a look on the ones that actually stuck around, right? The mainstays, the commanders that, despite this ridiculous onslaught of legendary creatures that we've been getting, and, not just we get a whole bunch, which of course we do, but also we get some really powerful ones as well. Which ones managed to survive the onslaught and actually are still some of the most popular commanders in the format? And I started playing around 2015, and of course, I wasn't sure what the most popular commanders were until I discovered EDH Rec, which of course I'm going to be using for this video. When I discovered EDH Rec, which was probably about a year later, probably around 2016, that's when I was like, okay, well, that's, that gave me a lot of insight. That's what I like that site for. Typically for me, it's more insight than it is for actual deck building. And so around that time, about 2016, what were the most popular commanders in the entire format that still are the most popular commanders in the entire format? And I'm going to, rather than just here, let's look at the most popular commanders, it's also, why are they? Why are these still some of the most popular commanders in the entire format? So it plays into maybe the bad design thing a little bit as well. So let's take a look. And I am going in order of popularity here. So Zur the Enchanter, 1 white, blue and a black human wizard, 1/4 flying. When it attacks, you may search your library for an enchantment card with mana value 3 or less and put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. So of course, it's been a phenomenal commander since forever. It originally came out in Cold Snap, and I don't know when people actually started playing the commander format. Was it before Cold Snap or after? But you would imagine that Zur was a really popular commander in the format right out of the gate. And of course, the reason why being is because your commander's a tutor. That's one of the first things I thought when I first started playing the commander format. I was like, wow, any commander that actually tutors and, is a tutor on a stick is going to be a phenomenal build around because you're guaranteed getting the cards you want, right? And there's a few like Captain Sisay, Scion of the Ur-Dragon. There was a few at the time commanders that actually repeatedly searched your library for stuff. And I'm like, wow, those make great build arounds. And of course they do. And Zur in particular, as I've said before, it's almost unfortunate that Necropotence is a legal card in the format because it makes Zur a kill on sight command. That card alone makes Zur a kill on sight commander. It's a little unfortunate. This guy is still rank 46 in the entire format. And again, that's really, really good. Considering, you look at last year alone, we got 400 commanders. The fact that this guy's still ranked 46 says a lot. I would say it was the second most popular Esper commander in the format at the time. Still has 9,200 decks on EDH Rec. Pretty darn good. Funny enough, the most popular Esper commander at the time was our number 9 commander on this list, which is Oloro Ageless Ascetic. 3 white, blue, and a black giant soldier 4/5. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 2 life. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card and each opponent loses 1 life. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Oloro is in your command zone, you gain 2 life, which, the reason why this was such a popular commander, and again, they printed this commander with the hopes that, it's a life gain commander. You can build an Esper life gain theme here, which a lot of people did. But this just became such a incredibly popular commander. I think I've talked about in the past, I've played against 1,000 Oloro decks, and I've maybe seen him actually hit the battlefield once or twice. People would just play Esper control decks. They would play even just Esper good stuff decks. They would play Esper life gain decks because your commander is guaranteed giving you before you even do anything, that's the ridiculousness of this commander. Before you even draw your first card, you've already gained 2 life. You're already at 42 life before you even play your first land, right? It's kind of silly. I think we all agree that the commanders that do stuff from the command zone, it was not a great idea. They obviously introduced that in C13 here, and I think right away people are like, oh, that's not great. So a lot of people use this as the commander for their deck for that reason. This was, I want to say, the 3rd most popular commander in the entire format for a while. Certainly when I started playing the format. I think it was number 3, and it stayed in like the top 5 for years, for a long time. Still ranked number 40, pretty good. It's got over 10,000 decks on EDH Rec. Still one of the most popular commanders in the format, and probably always will be. Next up, Queen Maressa, 1 red, white, and a black, human assassin, 3/3, death touch haste. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent is the monarch, create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with death touch and haste. This is kind of a funny one. I think, like, again, I might not be exact on the era here. I'm wondering when this actually came out. It was certainly around this time. I thought I would include it in the list. Again, one of those commanders, as soon as it came out, it became incredibly popular, and it still is incredibly popular. It's ranked 35. It is got over 10,000 decks on EDH Rec. The funny thing about this commander is, you know, obviously the main build around here is a Pillowfort strategy. Everyone, funny enough, the Oloro decks were the same way. You were doing the Pillowfort thing a ton with the Oloro decks, and this was the Mardu version of that a lot of times. And I always thought that was kind of funny because you're doing the Pillowfort thing simply so you don't lose the Monarchy, but the Monarchy is just draw a card. That's it. You could just put a Phyrexian Arena in your deck and have your, you know, there's easier ways to just draw a card every turn, I think. So I always thought that was a weird build around. Maybe I should even talk about this in a 5 builds video, because this is one of those commanders that everyone built it the same way, at least what I saw. Every Queen Maressa deck was, I'm playing the Pillowfort strategy. I'm going through all this effort just so I can hang on to the Monarchy, when just every turn I draw a card is pretty easy to do. So it seemed like a lot of effort for not much payoff. I like the other ability. Don't have the Monarchy and you're cranking out those assassin tokens. I thought that was a much neater way to build the deck. So, I mean, it's a great commander. You certainly could, just having a commander that when it ETBs gives you the Monarchy is already good, right? Because the Monarchy, everyone loves that mechanic. That's a great mechanic in the commander format. So for that reason alone, that makes this a neat commander. Coming in number 7, Marin of Clan Neltoth. This was definitely my arch nemesis for a long, long time. I mean, obviously, a lot of the commanders on this list were all commanders that I was not happy to see in commander games. This might have been the one that I hated the most playing against, and it's one of the reasons why Graveyard Hate became so important for me in commander decks, because if you were up against the Marin deck and you didn't have Graveyard Hate, I don't know, even removal didn't help that much. So 2 black and a green, human shaman, 3/4. Whenever another non-token creature you controls dies, you get an experience counter. So of course, this came out with all the other experience counters, commanders in C15, right? And it was, obviously this is right when I started playing the format, and so I saw it a ton. This was far and away, like all the other experience counter commanders were okay. There was a couple of them were okay, and then there was a couple that were just awful. This one was far and away the best. I mean, anyone who disagrees with me, go check out how popular the other experience counter commanders are in the format. This one is still ranked 27. That's really, really good, right? For the, I don't know what, thousands of commanders we have in the format. Number 27 is insanely good. Almost 12,000 decks on EDH Rec. At the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's mana value is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield, otherwise put in your hand. So this is worst case scenario. I just return a creature from my graveyard to my hand every turn, which is great. Even if it was just that. If you had a commander that just did that, that would be a great build around, especially in these colors. But getting experience counters is super easy. Again, if you look at all the other commanders, again, I would say Mizzix actually was pretty good too. Has fallen off a lot though. But Mizzix was pretty easy to get those experience counters. This was by far the easiest. Just, again, I'm just doing what I want to do in my deck anyway. Secure Tribe Elder. I go get a land. Hey, look at that. I just got an experience counter, right? It was super easy to get the experience counters, and it was super easy to throw big busted creatures in your graveyard. You know, I could tutor for a creature, throw it in my graveyard, and then just put it in my hand if I want it. Or I could, when I get to up on the experience counters, you know, I could just start recurring them directly to play. It was a deck that you just had to have Graveyard Hate with, or you lost. Still a phenomenal commander. It's the best, in my opinion, if you're doing a creature graveyard strategy, any sort of creature graveyard strategy, it's still the best commander for that by far. Coming in at number 6, Animar Soul of Elements, green, blue, and a red elemental 1/1, protection from white and from black. I don't know. Zone is pretty good. And I think I've talked about on my channel before how I've been in games where I'm playing my Orzhov deck and oh, buddy's playing an Animar deck. Great. This will just sit here and do nothing. It feels bad. It feels bad when you're playing an Orzhov deck against an Animar deck because it's like, hope I draw a board wipe. It's like, okay, I can't block your commander and I can't use any targeted removal on it. That sucks. And of course, you have an invincible blocker as well. Of course, the part you're building around here, everyone tends to build around whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1 counter on Animar Soul of Elements, which, again, that alone, I mean, you already have the protection from white and black, and then you have that amazing ability as well. And then on top of that, creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on Animar. So I guess this would fall into the category of the bad commander design of, I think they just did too much on this card, right? This is a commander that the reason it has maintained popularity, it's currently ranked 24 in the format, which of course is really, really good for a commander that came out. This was an original, right? This was C11, wasn't it? Over 12,000 decks still. It's really, really powerful and it's doing a lot. So it's making your stuff cost less. It's also, I have the infinite scenario where I can just bounce creatures and repeatedly cast them. It's also doing the, I can make my commander infinitely huge and maybe possibly one-shot my opponents. I can cast big dumb creatures for really, really cheap. It does that very easily. It does a lot of things really, really well. If you're just doing a straight up creature theme, just I want to make a creature deck, I don't know if I can think of a better commander for that. It has protection from the two best removal colors in the format. First of all, you're getting a really nice payoff for casting your creatures, and you're getting a nice cost reduction as well. So can't go wrong with that. Coming in at number 5, Nekusar the Mind Razor. 2 blue, black, and a red. Zombie Wizard, 2/4 at the beginning of each player's draw step. That player draws an additional card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Nekusar the Mind Razor deals 1 damage to that player. So I think I did I guess it would have been about a year ago now that I did my color combinations video. And I said in that video, anybody want to guess what the most popular Grixis commander still is in the commander format? It is still Nekusar the Mind Razor, which is pretty mind-blowing. Why is this such a great build around? This is such a great build around because, and I talked about this in my Best Commanders of the Year video. I gave Heliod an example of this. I call it the Sizan effect, but I guess I could call it the Nekusar effect as well. Rocco, which was my number 2 from last year, is another creature that it's doing a huggy effect that your opponents are going to like, but it's giving you way more of an advantage. Like that huggy effect, it makes it so that your opponents don't really want to remove your card. Oh, it's letting me draw another card, right? And not only that, but your opponents are probably playing stuff that is letting you draw cards. So it gives you that little bit of a huggy feeling. I had someone say, my play group calls this Cactus Hug. Cactus Hug is and it's not Group Slug, by the way. I had someone say, oh, that's Group Slug. What Sizan or Nekusar is doing is Group Slug. It's not. Group Slug is the opposite of Group Hug. That's the Mogus decks, right? That's the Spell Shock. Everything you do hurts you. That's the opposite. It's not what this is doing. What this is doing is Cactus Hug. I love that, which is come give me a hug, right? I'm going to give you a hug, but when you hug me, you're going to pay for it. Because of course, if you hug a cactus, it's not going to feel too good. I love that. That's a great phrase, a great term for this kind of deck, a Cactus Hug deck, which Nekusar was the OG of doing that. I guess technically Sizan was the OG of doing that because of course Sizan came out in Champions of Kamigawa, but was one of those commanders that wasn't actually intended to be a commander in the format, obviously, just happened to work out that way. This one actually obviously meant to be a commander, printed in a commander set, and they did a bang-up job here. It's a really, I think now we're at a point now where if you sit down against the Nekusar deck, everyone knows it's a really powerful commander and it's a really good commander. And they're probably going to be like, yeah, I want to draw an extra card every turn, but I know where this is going. That's usually what I do when I play against a Nekusar deck. So it sort of has lost that feel a little bit. It is a bit of a target when it hits the table, but still a phenomenal commander, right? Rank 21 in the entire format, still has 13,000 decks on EDH Rec, still is the most popular Grixis commander in the format. Pretty amazing. Coming in at number 4, Kalia of the Vast. And this one actually kind of surprised me a little bit when I was looking through and I was like, no, actually that does kind of make sense. Obviously, again, this is another C11 commander, another mainstay, another one that I sort of dreaded playing against back in the day. There is just some game-ending scenarios here with Master of Cruelties, right? I think that just ends the game for one player anyway. There's a couple of ridiculous plays there. That's why, for me, I don't Personally, I don't love this commander because this is absolutely a kill on sight commander. I'm actually kind of surprised it's still this popular for that reason. Rank 17 in the entire format. I mean, that's incredible for a commander that has been around this long and also, again, is a kill on sight commander. 14,000 decks on EDH Rec still. Wow. Think about all of the incredibly powerful and popular commanders we've gotten in the last couple of years, and this is still rank 17. But the reason why is because it is a fun commander to build around, and you can go down the rabbit hole, not really down the rabbit hole, but you go a little bit into, I can build it my own way. And yes, a lot of people will probably put Master Cruelties and Avacyn in their deck. Sure. Razaketh, all those really busted things that they're going to put in the deck. But also you can put your flavor on it. I think that's what people like about it. And again, every set has a new dragon or angel or demon. They're all going to have it. So there's a commander that every time a set comes out, I have to check out all the angels, demons, and dragons in that set to see if there's a great one that's going to fit in Cali of the Vast, which there probably is. So going to definitely be a commander you're going to have a tough time finding room for, but people probably like that. People probably like looking whenever a new set comes out going, oh man, there's a great new demon that I can throw in my Cali of the Vast deck, right? So no surprise at all that this is still one of the most popular commanders in the format, I don't think, for anybody. Coming in at number 3, Clanco Mob Boss, and I believe, so I guess I should have gave this a mention, of all the commanders on this list, the only ones that weren't actually printed for the commander format, right? All of the rest of the ones on this list were actually printed in commander sets, so very clearly printed for the commander format. The only ones that weren't are Zur the Enchanter, which again, that says a lot about that as a legendary creature, and also Clanco Mob Boss. And this wasn't obviously printed for the commander format, but also this is old enough that it's not in the era of they're clearly printing this as a commander, in a standard set. They're clearly printing this for the commander format. I don't think they were doing that here. It just worked out that way. And also, it's the only monocolored commander on this list as well. So, man, that says a lot about the power level of this commander and how much people like it. 2 red, Goblin Warrior 3/3, tap, create X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens, where X is the number of goblins you control. Just a really powerful ability. Funny enough, and I will talk about this more with the next commander, I've never had that much problem with this commander. This is actually a commander that a lot of people don't even like seeing in a casual commander game. I've never had an issue with it. It's obviously got a very powerful ability. This is a commander that I guess you could just do a run-of-the-mill goblin tribal deck and be okay, but it's a kind of a monolith commander a bit, right? You really want your commander out to be doing its thing. Because it has a tap ability, you got to give it haste right away, which is not hard in red, but you can easily respond to the lightning greaves or the whatever with your removal. And again, this is another kill on sight commander where if somebody shows up at a table with their Clanco deck, just save my swords to plowshares for that guy, right? Or my whatever. I'm probably not going to let you tap your commander ever. So just saying, it's obviously really powerful if you can get going. This is one of those commanders. Again, I would liken it very much to Cali of the Vast, where I can get that really big play and I can end the game very quickly, or I can sit here doing nothing because my opponents are constantly casting board wipes and removal. Again, the commander I'm about to talk about, the same will apply, where I never had an issue with these commanders. People had called for the commanders like this to get banned because it was just running people over. But because I always played lots of removal, I never had an issue. So not that I never lost to a Clanco deck. I probably have, but I didn't think it was particularly that bad because I played lots of board wipes. Rank number 11 in the format still. Obviously, it's still the most popular mono red commander, probably always will be. 15,000 decks on EDH Rec currently. Talk about a mainstay. It's sticking in there despite all the powerful commanders we've gotten recently. So coming in at number 2, the commander that I was alluding to, Edgar Markov, 3 red, white, and a black vampire knight 4/4, has the Eminence ability. So getting back to that whole doing stuff from the command zone thing, it's funny that they revisited this in C17 after everyone complained about Oloro and Derevi and what they were doing. They revisited it, and I probably will be making a video sometime in the new year talking about the mistakes that Magic, it's going to be a controversial one for sure, the mistakes that Wizards of the Coast made that they should have never done. And in my opinion, I think Eminence is one of them. I think most people would agree on that. I mean, not only is it really, really powerful, it goes against the spirit of the format because it's almost, I wouldn't say it's encouraging you not to play your commander, but you certainly don't need to, right? And I've seen lots of people play their Edgar Markov decks without ever casting their commander. Usually it comes out eventually, but usually it's like, okay, now it's time to close out the game. I'll bring my Edgar Markov out, but you don't have to. You certainly don't have to, right? You can very easily make a powerful vampire and aggro strategy without ever doing that. Obviously, it's a really powerful commander, ranked number 9 in the entire format, 16,000 decks, almost 17,000 decks in EDH Rec. That's a lot. Again, this is another one I'm a little surprised how popular it is. I guess this is not a kill on sight commander because it doesn't even need to hit the battlefield, but it is this goes against rule number 1. All these commanders go against rule number 1 for me, which is, of course, don't make yourself a target. If I play against any of these commanders, you're a target right out of the gate. I think everyone would agree with that. Again, though, this, just like with Clanco, is one that people are calling for this to get banned. For anyone who was playing back then, when this commander came out, it was just running over everybody. And there was a lot of people saying, we need to ban this commander. Not me. I play lots of removal. So yeah, you cast your 1/1 vampire and you get a 1/1 vampire token, and then you attack me for 2 damage. And then, that'll last for a little while. And then I just cast Hour of Revelation, which back then I played that card all the time. And it takes you a while to get going again. And by then now I've got blockers and I never had a problem. I don't think, I know people are going to call BS on me here, but I don't think I ever lost to an Edgar Markov deck. Not ever. I play lots of board wipes. What can I say? So yeah, I didn't have a lot of problems with Edgar Markov decks. I never, ever. When people called for it to get banned, I was like, really? I don't have a problem with it. You have to kill 3 opponents. Aggro strategies are already really tough in the commander format. So still really popular commander. It's the 9th most popular commander in the entire format. Pretty crazy. All right. And of course, coming in at number 1 is Atraxa, Praetor's Voice, green, white, blue, and a black, Angel Horror, 4/4. If you haven't seen it before, flying, vigilance, death touch, lifelink at the beginning of your end step, proliferate. And I'm not at all surprised that this is number 1. When I first discovered EDH Rec way back in 2016, it would have been shortly after this came out. So obviously it very quickly became number 1. This was number 1. And Atraxa was one of the first commander decks I ever made. Like one of the first 3 or 4 decks I ever made, because I was like, what a cool creature, right? And I thought proliferate, lots of neat things you could do there. And I discovered EDH Rec and I realized, oh, that's why everyone's attacking me right out of before I even do anything. I'm like, why are you attacking me? And they're like, because you're playing Atraxa. I'm like, oh, okay. Lesson learned, right? And of course, go down that whole scenario. And that's why I build decks the way I do now. This has 29,000 decks on EDH Rec. And again, even if you look at Edgar Markov, which is number 9, 16,000, that's a big jump. This is far and away the most popular commander in the entire format, which is not surprising at all, I don't think. However, if you've been keeping up on the history of this actually it hasn't been the whole time. This was the most popular commander in the format when I first started playing in 2016, 2017. And then, does anyone remember what trumped it? It got trumped by Muldrotha, which I maybe could have gave a Muldrotha. Again, the timeline here is a little iffy on the commanders I'm including. It's just the ones I remember in my own head. Muldrotha came out, of course, in Dominaria. Still ranked 19. Again, there's another commander that'll always be a mainstay, always be really popular. That became the most popular commander in the entire format for about a year, maybe a little less than a year. Again, I'm accessing my memory here. This was a little while ago now. And then, of course, Golos came out, and Golos became very quickly, again, these commanders, like Atraxa goes from, it's been released to the most popular commander in the entire format in like a minute. Muldrotha, the same thing. It very quickly became the most popular commander in the entire format. And then Golos went from just gets introduced into the format, and like a month later, it's the most popular commander in the entire format. And of course, probably still would be if it wasn't banned. And then after Golos got banned, I was like, what's going to happen now? I guess that Kenrith, I'm getting a little off topic here, but we are talking about the most popular commanders in the format. I thought Kenrith was going to take over. I thought Kenrith would be the most popular commander in the format after Golos got banned. That was my prediction. It got close. I think it got up to number 2, but then it fell off a little bit. It's currently number 8. So of course it's still hanging in there. The 5-color commanders have fallen off a little bit. Funny enough, the Ur-Dragon is number 2. It's ranked number 2 in the format right now. currently with over 20,000 decks on EDH Rec, which I guess that came out in C17 too, so maybe I should have gave that a mention. If I'm giving Edgar Markov a mention, I should be talking about the Ur Dragon, right? Because they came out at the same time. You know, whatever. You get the gist of what I'm talking about here. And all of these commanders have had to compete with everything else that's been coming out, right? Rank number 3, Lathril, Blade of Elves, which would have come out, and this one still kind of surprises me. I can't believe this is the third most popular commander in the entire format. This came out in Cal time, of course, which is right after I started my channel. So that's number 3 right now. So this is what these mainstays have had to compete with. Ishin, Two Heavens is number 4 right now. Wow. That's incredible. Man, people really like that commander. It is a good commander. Eureka, number 5, which again, I was like, okay, that's C18. I don't think I'm going to go that far forward. I think I'll stay away from that. But of course, that's been a commander that's been like the top 5 forever. Miram Sentinel Worm, again, that will forever be people always say, oh, you can't let them untap with Miram Sentinel Worm. Okay, well, don't then. First of all, just like you can't let them untap with Cali of the Vast. Same thing. Like how many commanders fit that strategy, right? And those guys don't cost 6 mana. They only cost like 4. I'm not going to get back on this bandwagon. All I'm saying is I'm a little bit confused by this is the 6th most popular commander in the entire format. That's a little confusing. Will Held coming in at number 7. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all the most popular commanders in the format, but you just think of some of these really popular, powerful commanders that have been competing. And after all of that, Atraxa Praetor's Voice is still number 1 and by a long shot. And the reason why is because this is just fantastic commander design. My one beef with Atraxa has always been, because I like to proliferate. Just proliferating on your end step is not super busted. It's great. It's super open-ended. There's so many different things you can do there. That's what makes it a great ability and a great build around. What I think they went a little bit too far with is the Flying Vigilance Death Touch lifelink. I would have liked to see, let's knock off at least one of those abilities. Obviously, the Flying and the Vigilance makes sense because it is an angel. Maybe knock off either the Death Touch or the lifelink. I think they went a little too far there. Having a Vigilance flying blocker that you can also attack with and gain life every turn is just putting it a little over the top for me. You know, I mentioned in my video, I think the one I just did about the new commanders coming out and you know, some guy had said, oh, well, they put all this stuff on these commanders to make them great build arounds for new commander players. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think having 2 paragraphs on your commander makes it a great build around for a new commander. Atraxa, and again, that's why it is probably still the most popular commander in the format, is because that's a great build around for a new commander player. Just find a bunch of stuff with counters. I mean, super open-ended, really great ability, and really great for new commander players as well. Really great commander design. It was just funny to say for a commander that I absolutely loathed back in the day. I used to hate all of these, but I really hated I guess, obviously, I played against it constantly. It was mostly Super Friends decks. That's probably the reason why I hated Atraxa so much. It was either Super Friends or Infect, which are both nasty strategies to play against it and often can be not a lot of fun. It is a really great commander, and that's why it is still the most popular commander in the entire format. So there you go, just talking about the most popular commanders in the format, but getting a little bit of subject of, you know, good commander design versus bad commander design. And, you know, I thought it would be an interesting thing to do to look back at some of the most popular commanders from the format that when I started playing, they were the most popular, and they are still sticking in there. And again, in particular, a guy like Zur, who that guy wasn't even intended for the commander format at all, but is still the 46th most popular commander in the entire format. Pretty incredible. Obviously a great build around without question. You guys let me know in the comments what you think. If you have any of these commanders and you're still playing them, maybe you're one of those guys that you built an Edgar Markov deck or a Cali of the Vast deck. Maybe you built a Cali of the Vast or an Oloro deck way back in like 2011, 2012, and you still got it kicking around. Maybe you're one of those guys, right? So there is that playing into it as well. Let me know in the comments below. Happy New Year. This will be my last video of 2023. I'll see you guys in the new year. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.